Hi, I'm Carla D. Tillery, and welcome to the Chair Chronicles. I'm your life coach and your favorite auntie. You know, that aunt that is so not afraid to tell you the truth and help you see things just a little clearer, and you love her advice. Well, as a certified life coach with over 2 decades of experience, I'm very passionate about helping you find your happiness. So pull up a chair and let's have a talk. Hey, LA.
Hey there.
Listen, the election is finally completed and
Ooh,
over.
yes, we can breathe.
We can breathe. And I want to talk about how have your reactions been and what have you been hearing as a result of, the 2020 election. It was it was crazy. It was just a crazy time
Yes, yes.
and stressful.
Mhm.
And it still is.
Yes, yes.
It still
Yes,
is stressful. But I
right,
know there's so much that's been going on in terms of different people's reactions and different
right,
emotions. And so
right, right,
I really want to dive into how you responded to the
right.
2020 election. And let's just see, are there some differences or are we feeling the same based on
Well,
everything that has been happening?
well, I know, I think the week prior to voting, I had just had enough. Anytime a commercial came on, anytime, Biden came on, anytime number 45 came on, I just turned the TV off. I just could not take
You couldn't do it.
another campaign. I could not take another commercial. I was on overload, just campaign
Yeah.
overload. And I just wanted it to be over so I could just put my vote in and let the chips fall where they may. So I definitely went in saying that, let's just get to it. And
Gotcha.
so I'm glad that we got to it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm the exact opposite. I had wanted to shut it down because it was getting to me.
Right.
And I thought that's what I was going to do because, I was like, okay, enough is enough. However, I think because my husband constantly had, the TV on and was giving me updates
Mm,
and it pulled me in. He pulled
okay.
me in.
Okay.
And so it was almost a 24/7 to the
Mm,
point where I was literally falling asleep
right.
with the TV on. And I said
Mm,
I wasn't going to turn it off because if I woke up and needed to take a bio break, I wanted to get the update.
right. Right.
Right. I
Exactly.
didn't want to have to turn the TV on. So it literally stayed on for days. But
Right.
I would say that, emotionally wise, I was able to kind of keep everything in check. There were some times I was getting angry, but I was just really trying to follow the process.
Right. Right.
And I think this election has been more educational to me than any other
Yes.
prior elections,
Yes. Hmm.
with learning sort of the process of voting and what happens after the fact and dealing with when is the right margin for a hand count versus a
Right.
recount and what that all means and the certification process and the length of time that it takes right
Yes.
after an election really for it to be final. And so
Right.
that was something that I honestly can say I
Mhm.
wasn't that abreast on. And so
Right.
this
Right.
election was extremely educational to me
Yes.
about the whole entire election process.
Right, right. And one of the things that I am grateful for is that a lot of people, whether it was a seminar online, and actually my first lady put together a Black Women in Politics seminar, and it really educated people
Yeah.
about, like you said, not only about the process, but what were the candidates, not just on a national level, the local candidates, what
Mm,
were they standing for? Because we tend to, we just pull the lever for who we like, but are they advocating for those things that are important to us? And
that's
so
right.
I really respected and engaged in at least 5 of those type of online free, come on in, let's talk about the political process. Do you understand how your vote happens? Do you know about the electoral college? So like you said,
Yeah.
so there was some education behind it, and there was an urgency to know.
Yes.
That's
There
what I really appreciated.
absolutely. Urgency, I think, is a great word for this because I think there was just so much happening, in our country over the last few years that I think no matter what political side you're on,
I think everybody felt that urgency, that felt the need that something needs to happen, right? And so I think that certainly was felt in my surrounding, talking to my friends and talking with my family members. And I remember, I'm doing this like this question, like, okay, when you going to vote, what time you going to vote? And I remember one young lady, and she just became a U.S. citizen. She was an immigrant and is now a U.S. citizen. And she just finished getting that, but had not yet registered to vote. So you know me, as soon as I found out, I was like, I was looking it up. I said, I'm going to help you. And I said, I checked on her later and I said, are you all set to vote? And she was like, oh, I'm a little nervous because, just not familiar with that experience. And I said, I will go with you. And I drove 30 miles one way to make sure that she was registered and that she voted. And the beautiful thing about it was, so I'm in there taking pictures. Got my camera out. I'm taking pictures. So one of the ladies that was working the polls, and she goes, is this your first time? I was like, yeah, this is her first time voting. And everybody stopped and started clapping. It was a beautiful thing. And I'm talking all nationalities. It was very diverse in there, and everybody was clapping.
That's awesome. And and that's the spirit that we want. And I think, when you think back to when President Barack first, accepted the nomination to run for president, I don't think we've seen that kind of excitement. And again, I don't know that the right word is excitement, but I know that it really sparked this election really sparked something in people. And like you did, just reaching out and finding out, are you registered to vote? Come on, let me walk you through the process. You don't have to, feel afraid or say, I'm not going to do it because I don't understand it. And we've seen that. We've seen that with a lot of the sororities and fraternities and church groups and lay people, that people, even in our own families, just grabbing people.
Just grabbing each other. Yes.
Vote, and watching, even some of my nieces and nephews for the first time, they were so excited to like send me a snapshot of them saying, I voted, today was my first day, so it's like, yay,
Exactly. And I would say, I think for for one of the first times, I wouldn't say this is the first time, because I think when Barack was elected president, I think that was another historical moment for a lot of different reasons. But I think this election also had its own type of historical stamp, so to speak. I think it will be talked about for many, many, many years. I think, when you were talking about whether it's excitement enough or not, I think in a lot of cases, it really feels like a tug of war. It's just this push and pull, and because our country is very much divided, and I think that's why everybody, like I said, no matter what kind of political party you in or what your beliefs are, I think everybody felt this urgency this year during this election. And so many things have happened this year in 2020. My goodness. Ooh. I mean, it has just been a whirlwind of a year.
Yes.
And this certainly is a critical element to 2020.
Right. And with you saying that, it just brought something to mind, that with the voting process, with you having a right to vote, like you said, no matter what aisle you sat on, you felt like I have control over something with all of the chaos that's happening. So, therein lies that thing that's within each of us that says, I can do something to make change in this world. I can do something that makes not only myself feel better, but others around me. So, I also look at it as a liberating moment for us as well, saying, okay, we can't control this pandemic. We can't control being shut down, but we can control being able, whether we stood in line, whether we mailed in our, we all took a part in this process.
Yes, absolutely. And I think more people now are realizing how their voice does matter, how their vote matters. There were just so many close, close races in different states where I feel like now people are getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because when
Yeah.
there's a landslide, it doesn't really feel like, oh, if I voted, it didn't matter.
Right.
If I didn't vote, it didn't matter, right? Because there was just such a majority spread. But there were
Yes.
so many races that were close where
Yes.
it you could feel like, okay, if you didn't vote,
Right.
you're hurting us. Either way, right?
Right. Your
And
one vote could be the change.
I think for the first time,
Yeah.
people understand that expression that your vote does matter.
It does. It does. And I'll say this. For being a person of African American heritage, it our vote has always been important to me from the time that I was registered and able to vote. I have always thought about stories that I've heard from other people, and even hearing a story from my mom about her grandfather, my great grandfather, who did vote, but standing at the door of the general station where you would go and put your little ballot in the box, and hearing white men sit there and say, well, we might as well close the polls because that N word, their votes don't count. And hearing my mom, that her shoulders squared back, and said, my grandfather took the butt of his gun and opened up the door and said, well, this N man vote will count. And see, and think about that. That's during the 30s. That's during the 20s, So it's like, ooh, I would be remiss not to vote. I mean, look what he went through.
Right. I bet you there are hundreds and thousands of stories just like that of how, our greats, our great greats had to press, had to be strong, had to endure to make sure that their vote was even counted, right? And walking miles and miles to get there, right? Because accessibility was very tough back in those days. And they weren't making it easy for us to vote. And I remember hearing now, even still, they're saying, like, particularly in rural areas, how it's still very challenging, right? With limited polling stations, and it's, the accessibility to those places are still very challenging to this day. So in so many ways, we've come a long way, but in so many ways, we still have a far ways to go. And it's just like, how do we end up living in these two different worlds? Right? We're living in between. We made progress. We've come to a place where we're starting to get some recognition, but then there's this pushback to deny our vote, to deny who we are, to deny our value. And it's like we're constantly going back and forth, right? Between these two different worlds.
Yeah. And again, you've talked about this in the past, where this is systemic. It is so built into the fiber of this country.
Yes.
We see it in books, white fragility, classes. So, it's a constant where we, no matter who you are, have to grab those books and let's look at where all of this stuff started from.
Yes.
Will we escape it? I can't sit here confidently and say that voter suppression will never happen again.
Right.
I don't believe that. Because I believe that there are just certain systems that are in place, and until we get to the root of those systems and knock them down, and the people who are in positions of power that can pull these systems down, they will always be in place. But I believe that although they're in place, it empowers us.
Right.
Shine a light.
Yes.
And we do our part. We cannot sit back and say, well, this is why it's happening, so I'm not going to exercise my power of voting and my power of speaking out. We cannot. We cannot afford to do that. We have generations coming behind us.
That's right.
And they're both.
The other thing is just being a woman, because women of all races have been suppressed of their vote, right? And so now we're seeing this sort of coming together and this unity, and you hearing the statistics of how the female vote is critical. And so
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing these candidates really
Yes.
push, right, to
Right.
gain the vote of women
Right.
and to make sure they're hearing our issues and to make sure that they're addressing the things that we want to see addressed in this country. So that's, I mean, this thing is just so layered.
It
And
is.
to understand how powerful the woman's voice is
Yes.
another, I think, reaffirming, it's a reaffirming element of who we are now, you know,
Yes.
and who we are becoming and the places
Yes.
we are going. And
Yes.
I am loving the energy and the momentum just of the
Yes.
woman fight.
Yes. Yes.
Come on
And I
now,
mean,
I'm
and look,
loving it.
and let's just be clear. Women on fire. Look at our vice president. Come
What?
on. It
Yeah,
doesn't get any better than that. Okay. A woman of color, a woman of migrant parents, a woman who we all, and especially women of color, we can truly sit and say, wow, look at us.
exactly.
Look at
So
us.
so
Yeah.
on election night,
Yeah.
we were up late and
Mhm.
well, I guess this was a couple of days after the election.
Right.
But during
Right.
the election period,
Right.
when we
Right.
finally, realized that Kamala Harris is the vice president elect. So
Yeah.
I am in the room and I am on fire. I am yelling, I am screaming,
Yes.
I am clapping.
Yes. Yes.
I was asked to move and leave the room.
Oh my gosh, you're making that much noise?
Yeah. I was just so excited. And then
Yes.
when they did their, I believe it was Friday after the election, and they or either Saturday, I think it was Saturday, when
Right.
they had did their conference, or when they spoke.
Right.
I was just so elated. I just could not.
Yes.
It was a very inspiring moment.
Right.
It was a very moving moment
Mhm.
to see someone that I could relate to
Yes.
in that
Right.
position, right?
Right.
That was
Right.
absolutely amazing. And
Yes.
and again, it goes back to just, feeling proud as
Right.
a Black woman
Mm-hmm.
when for so many years, going back to our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents, that how that was two strikes against you
Mm-hmm.
to be Black
Absolutely.
and to be a woman.
Oh yeah.
We were not seen as really having a lot of value, not being
Right.
smart, not having the wherewithal to be career driven.
Exactly.
Plus raising a home, taking care of a home and raising a family.
Right.
And so now to kind of see this elevation of
Mm-hmm.
women, it is,
Yes.
and it's just beyond me. I'm just so excited, and it's really given me a lot of inspiration to really to
Yeah.
move forward and to really
Right.
do and keep doing. So
Right. Right. And it is. It's very inspiring, and to see it come full circle, especially knowing that she was the presidential candidate, and watching her go toe to toe with
oh yeah,
someone who has been ingrained in politics for a long time. And I
long
mean, her
time.
being able to stand up and stand in her own. So regardless of whether he picked her because of the cry for having more women and women of color, I really believe that, well, she also knew his son and was very good friends with his son, but I also think that he also saw someone who truly stood in her truth. And
Yes.
I believe that he needed, and he knew he needed someone like
Right.
her,
Right.
someone that's not kowtowing to no one,
Right.
you know. So
Right.
it's inspiring to all of us, whether we are ever thinking of aspiring to be on that stage or just in the working world or just in our being.
Right.
It really just continues to empower us,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, I would say to those who still feel skeptical,
Yeah.
the process works.
Yeah.
You may be disappointed if your candidate did not win, but rest assured that America has a process, and we're moving forward to make sure that all votes are heard and all votes are counted for. And I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
Just seeing while there's been a lot of different issues and things that have arisen, and that certainly is true probably in any election. I'm just happy to see the more momentum. I'm happy to see the educational process take place, not just in me, but with a lot of people that I know. So that it's building us to help teach the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. I think for many of us, we are creating legacy in our own families about the voting process. And I am happy about that.
I'm all for it. Absolutely. So let's keep doing it.
Let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it. And again, I think we've talked about this before. We also need to be reminded that it's not just a national election that we have to be concerned about, but it's the local elections. We need to be on it. We need to be concerned about it. We need to make sure we understand the candidates. Listen, we need to put ourselves in a position where we're even running.
That's it.
We've got to take more of a stance to get involved in our community. And I know people have different gifts, and maybe it's not politics, but maybe it's in another area, whether it's nonprofit or whether it's advocacy or whether it's working on different local boards and committees. There is something to be done. And I mean, I want us to, we need to continue the conversation, right? Because again, we have to go beyond the national election. We've got to be concerned about midterms. We've got to be concerned about who our local candidates and politicians are. And are they representing our needs? Are they putting in policy and legislation that really works for us? And so we've got to stay on it. We can't let
They have to earn our vote. They have to earn our vote. They can't just show up, a couple of weeks before, and campaign, and here's my leaflet. No. I need to know who you are. I need to know who you were in January. Don't come to me in November. I don't know you.
Right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
This is good. This is good stuff.
So the election brought out a lot of different emotions, but all in all, again, I think for me, the educational piece of it, I really took on. And I'm excited about my personal growth, right? And understanding more about our democracy.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. This is great. Great.
All right. Awesome. Well, listen, we hope that all of you are just having your own flashbacks about the election. And hopefully you found yourself in a place where you see yourself personally growing and understanding more about your right to vote and what it means. Because truly, your voice matters. So anyway, thanks for staying connected with us. We appreciate you so much. And as always, stay tuned and stay connected on the Chair Chronicles.